An insider's look, returning to flying, a new approach to safety. Cyndi Hunter is the Director of Global Accounts for United Airlines, where she leads an experienced sales team responsible for managing global relationships with Fortune 100 customers. Her current team's portfolio is primarily focused on energy sector. Her other key customers are on aerospace, defense, as well as technology industries. Previously, in her 26-year tenure with Continental Airlines, some of us remember that too, Cyndi held diverse positions in sales, marketing, alliance, corporate development. And lucky for us as the council, Cyndi is one of our board members. Cyndi, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Sonia, for the warm welcome and greetings from the beautiful Houston Polaris Club. Actually, I'm not in the Houston Polaris Club. You're in my kitchen, but I know that you'd all much rather be traveling or thinking about traveling, which is the purpose of today. We're very proud to be a partner with the World Affairs Council, and I'm personally honored to serve on your board. We're excited to take you behind the scenes, and I will be bringing along my colleagues from the Houston Intercontinental Airport, Andy Jameson, who's the Senior Manager, Airport Operations Customer Service, Carrie Vargas, she's the Director, Human Resources and Employee Relations, and David Gonzalez, Manager, Corporate Communications. We're going to be showing a little bit of a video to give you behind the scenes look, and then talking through some of the details, but we'll spend most of the time really in that Q&A, hearing, understanding what your questions are, and learning more about what it looks like traveling today.
Wonderful, how exciting. And for some of you, our viewers, you might notice that my background has changed. That is because actually today, are live from our World Affairs Council offices. So it's for us as well. Happy to be here and to be back at the office. Again, Cyndi and your team, thank you so much for joining us. What a timely conversation. I mentioned to my colleagues today as I was getting ready to work and thinking about this opportunity, how I best prepare, but sure what not to forget. I look at the TV and there's actually a news story about United Airlines and about the new safety protocols in place. And I had to smile and say, oh, look at that. We were actually planning the session before the morning news, the big national news. I was, so proud that we are ahead of the curve. So I would say exactly that, to the point that this is very, very timely. We all know, Cyndi, that so much of the global trade has been put in distress by coronavirus. Airline industry has been affected greatly as well. Last year at this time, we know that TSA was feeding about 2.5 million passengers daily. Now, today, that number is about 700,000 passengers. Of course, it has dropped a lot in comparison to the 2.5. But at the same time, that 700,000 is also such an increase where we were a few months ago. And of course, as travel restrictions are lifted, as we will speak about today, many safety protocols in place. And I would say also that brings the travelers confidence, and that is returning, and we're looking at the next ways. Many of us definitely missed our summer travel, and the same, so much looking forward to going back and flying and have the whole experience of flying, besides of getting to the place that we're going to and reconnecting with the new opportunities or old friends. We know that there are, as I said, many new industry safety measures and protocols are placed. And in a way, it is a new way of flying that we are all looking at and will be experiencing, and not many of us have flown. And I think that new experience actually starts from the moment that we get out of our car and enter the airport facility. I think that's a perfect place where we should start. Once I've gotten out of my car and I walk inside the airport facility. Cyndi, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. Turn to you.
I think we're going to queue up a video that will allow you to see kind of firsthand some of the safety protocols we're putting in place. So cue the video.
Thank you.
There should be some snazzy music along with this, but we'll have it posted on the site as well. There we go. Wonderful. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, it gave you kind of a first-hand look at what we're doing on from the moment that you get to the airport all the way through to your post-flight experience. And probably the best place to start, you can see on the bottom all of the different touch points. We're looking at each one of them and constantly innovating and looking at new ways to keep you healthy and safe. But overall, I want to talk about our United Clean Plus initiative. And it's important to recognize it's not just a list of protocols. It's much broader than that. It's truly our commitment to delivering industry-leading cleanliness, but also putting health and safety at the forefront of your experience. We've partnered with two absolute industry leaders, Clorox and the Cleveland Clinic, early on to be able to help guide us with their expertise in ensuring that we can give you and provide you with a healthy and safe experience. There are three really key components. It's delivering the industry level leading cleanliness, and again, using Clorox products. We'll go in a little bit more detail about some of those components. And I think the Cleveland Clinic is learning to their expertise because obviously we're learning as we're moving forward. Things change constantly, and really learning what we need to be doing now to improve. They've been incredible and invaluable components on that. Also, in prioritizing your well-being. Well-being is space masks and supporting social distancing. And then the last piece is innovating, looking for a healthier tomorrow. With guidance from these partners, we're looking for new ways. And you saw today, thank you, Sandhya, for noting that we have a brand new announcement about a word I'm sure most of you know how to pronounce, microbial. Zuno Microbe Shield. It's an EPA-registered antimicrobial coating that actually forms a bond with the surfaces and limits the growth of microbes. I thought it was also interesting that EPA listed this as a category 4, the lowest level of toxicity. But all of this actually starts even before you get to the airplane. So helping you make good decisions as you're traveling. We added more flexibility. We got rid of those annoying change fees so you can book today. And if your plans change or things change and you don't want to take a trip, you don't have to pay the change fees. There's also a wonderful new interactive tool that you can use on the award-winning United app that basically shows you can pick any destination and see real time what the potential limitations are or restrictions in that market. You can see on here it's color-coded, open to visitors, or quite a bit of restrictions in the market. And again, it's real time and updated so you can plan your trip effectively. And then also, United is really focused on transparency. We want you to recognize throughout the journey what you're looking for. So this seat map, when you're going to book a seat, our algorithm behind the scenes, when you book a seat, it really keeps those middle seats open. But as flights get more full, we would notify you, because we want to give you the choice of in your hands, and the transparency to be able to make choices that are important to you. But we'll notify you if the flight is getting close to 70% full. Now, even 70% full, there are a lot of middle seats open, and there's lots of distancing on the plane. And I think that's a key thing in understanding the comfort on board. And I actually really want to talk about, and it's in the next slide, but the key piece to safety on that, and I'll come back, is really it's all about airflow on the plane that helps make it a safe environment. Every 2 to 3 minutes, it is clean air coming in to the airplane from the ceiling to the floor. So right where you're sitting, and it has that coming through the HEPA, basically hospital grade filters before it comes to you. They're constant filtration, and the experts, we're working with a lot of organizations to help document in a scientific way and show that this is really a fantastic experience. Can you go back a little? I'm going to talk a few other things pre-flight on that previous slide. You also can use our chatbot to text clean to fly UA, and it can give you in detail. You can also get this on lots of other places, but all of the protocols we're using and all the measures we are to keep you healthy and safe while traveling. It also, the ready to fly checklist, you'll be right before you get to travel. It'll ask you all the types of things, if you've had any symptoms, et cetera. Anybody who's been to a doctor or dentist or even going to work out, you've seen similar checklists to ensure that you're going to be safe when you get on the plane. They also make sure that you know our mask policy. United was really a leader in this space, and recognizing our best defensive tool is wearing a mask. If you go through the airport, you're going to see requirement for wearing masks in the airport, on the plane, throughout the entire journey. And it's really our first line of defense. And the last piece, and frankly, all of you are frequent flyers, and we're talking to World Affairs Council, who's got a lot of experienced travelers out there, but being able to extend your mileage plus flyer status until January 2022 is a really important thing. So you recognize we're rewarding you for the travel you took in 2019, and you still have that. So next we'll finish up a few of the items on the next slide. So as you saw in the video, from the moment you walk into the airport, you're going to be seeing things that we're doing to help keep you safe. There's protective barriers in the lobbies and the gate area. You'll see on the floor all the social distancing, so you know where to stand. We're looking everywhere we can to create a touchless experience. For example, before, if you had to check a bag, you'd be pressing all the numbers on pressing the kiosk and touching it. Now you can see in this picture, put your phone there, and it'll actually read your boarding pass and print the boarding pass for you. Print the bag tags for you. So completely touchless experience. We're also looking at other areas, for example, in documentation for international destinations, enhancing all the kiosk functionality so they can be truly touchless. When you get on board the plane, you'll have hand sanitizer and available to you, so you can wipe down your own personal space. I've seen, when I traveled, saw someone ask for several of them. You can have as many as you want. And I'll be talking about some traveler tips as well. Also, we're changing how we board and deplane. So we board from we start at the back of the airplane all the way forward to ensure the most social distancing. We start boarding a little bit earlier. And then when you land, it's the reverse process. So you start from the front to the back. And they encourage everyone to stay seated while they're in the deplaning or boarding process to ensure, again, that the utmost safety that they can. And we talked about this several times, but the electrostatic spraying, I think, is really unique. Not only it is in the individual components, but there are a lot of what we call soft components, the seats up inside the in the overhead bins, when you really need a more comprehensive cleaning. And the electrostatic spraying is sort of, it wraps around. So you figure out a tray table instead of having to clean all the way around it. That's what the electrostatic sprayer actually does. It wraps a cleanliness around that. And one thing, even before, we didn't talk much about our employee group, but obviously safety is our core value, and everything we do is towards safety. And employees, they have temperature checks, they have all the cleanliness tools available to them in terms of sanitizing equipment, et cetera. And specifically, a good example of an innovation on the flight deck. Originally, we had started to use wipes and that type of thing, but we realized there's so many sensitive avionics and screens that frankly can't be used with that type of. So they actually use the ultraviolet wands to clean in the flight deck. So that's an example that's keeping our pilots safe, our flight crew safe. So. And then I will go, we'll have plenty of time for questions, but I just want to give you a few tips for travel on the next slide, and then we'll open to Q&A. Oh no, I have two more things. So the most important thing is, you actually saw this in the video, a lot of the retail establishments and restaurants are closed. Because obviously we're down significantly in the number of total customers, as Sanjay had given that great stat before. Some things are open, but you can't count on it. So we definitely encourage you, have a meal before you get to the airport. Bring food with you if that works as well. You also can take as much hand sanitizer as you like, up to 12 ounces. So that's an important thing. And I know for myself, it's an added thing of safety that feels comfortable. We're used to carrying around our hand sanitizers these days. Make sure that you have your United app downloaded, not only for the tips, but it also will help you in those touchless components. Wear your favorite mask or face covering. We will provide them if you need them at any point in the journey. And now that you've got some of this down, I'll give some exciting news. If you go to the next slide, one thing we recognize, you may not be traveling for work, but you most likely could be traveling or thinking about travel for leisure destinations. So United and our network planning team have really focused on this. And this is specifically Houston. In addition to 11 market resumptions, we're going to 85 additional markets with a focus on vacation destinations. I saw Milwaukee on here. I'm not sure we put Milwaukee on a vacation destination. No offense, I'm a Midwest girl myself, but it could be for the fall. So there's a lot of opportunity, obviously, with the mountain growth. Florida has been probably one of the big hotspots for travel. And I think for a lot of different reasons. The West is growing as our mountain region. And last but not least, before we go to the Q&A, it was really exciting on the next slide to see that we're really expanding our international footprint as well, looking into 2021. And we've got 2 destinations in Africa, Accra and Lagos. I'm personally pretty excited about the Maui service and the Johannesburg service. We also have Chicago Kona, and a big new destination for us is New Delhi from Chicago, but San Francisco Bangalore has probably been on our wish list for new routes for many, many years. So it's exciting to see United committing to our long-term future. We really recognize it's a very difficult time, but we're confident in the future that we'll get there, and we're starting first and foremost with our safety. So I'll conclude there, and we can open up for Q&A.
Thank you so much. Yes, we're going to bring in your colleagues, as you mentioned. I have to say it's already, our Q&A is really doing well. I have a lot of interest, so we'll just wait for them to join us. As you mentioned, they represent different parts of airline and airport, so we have a really good team effort in answering those replies. And
yeah, as we're logging them, Andy Jameson, I want to give a special thank you to. Back in the spring, some customers were saying, I'd like to see what you're doing firsthand. So he's done some great customer tours out at the airport. So as we evolve, obviously we're here. United is Houston's hometown carrier, and we're committed to really learning from you what we need to be doing to be effective, safe, and delivering for you.
So let me perhaps go ahead, at least start with the one question I think.
Sure.
Actually, Jeff asked us, since airlines are doing excellent job for cleaning the airports and aircrafts, I feel that the flight must have less risk of COVID-19 than actually daily life. But going to the airport or from the airport to the destination might have lots of risks. In this circumstance, as a travel partner, how could we encourage our travelers, to fly again? And Carrie, I think she's about to join us. Carrie, you might probably have to, here we go.
Cyndi, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Maybe it's me.
Let me repeat the question again.
Thank you.
Since airlines are doing excellent job for cleaning the airports and aircrafts that you have just stated, great new initiatives are in place. The question is about how, as we as a travel partner, encourage travelers to fly again, and anything else as for the participation, because there's so much. The airports are in great shape, the airlines is great shape, but what happens in life in between, or going to the airport, perhaps? What kind of encouragement that we could
Andy?
Participants?
Well, I would start off by saying, I would love my colleagues to join. I think the interesting thing is we're evolving. We're all getting used to our own personal comfort. And we know we've got our hand sanitizer, we're wearing our mask constantly. I thought it was a big change for me when I realized that I was driving with my mask on, and I realized I'd forgotten to take it off. So I think our personal comfort level in being just aware. And I think that when you get in an airport situation, that's when because you're thinking about so many other things. Where's my gate? What do I need to do? It's making sure that you're very conscious of your personal surroundings and safety. And I think just encouraging that. And it's great to hear that you feel that we're doing all the right things. And I think it's just going to be a little bit a matter of time. I think all of us are taking our baby steps and trying new things and seeing what's comfortable to us. Carrie and Andy, anything else to share?
Carrie, I think just a quick technical, I think Carrie might be muted perhaps on your end. Sorry, just want to make sure. Yep, here we go. Welcome. And if you don't have it, actually I have a lot of questions about masks. I know,
great.
But, Martin asks us, we have heard of situations where a passenger took off their mask in flight and they refused to wear it. If I am near such a passenger, what do I do? Since there are no formal regulations, what sanctions can be taken against such a passenger? Will the plane go back, turn back?
Andy, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so kind of tagging on to the previous question about, what's United doing and what's different about traveling. United Airlines was really the leading airline in this initiative in the wearing of masks. And we've taken a really hard stance on the requiring of masks, not only for customers, but our employees, whether you're on an airplane or in our terminals. We have turned back aircraft, whether in flight or on the ground, and taken customers off the airplane for not wearing a mask. We have a very rigorous review process, and which will also include, and has included, that we will not allow those customers to travel again on United Airlines. They will be banned for travel on United. So we've taken an industry-leading stance on the requirement of masks.
Okay, thank you so much. And anybody else on that mask comment?
I would just say in that specific instance, if there's someone took off the mask, they can ask to be moved. Again, the good news is with low load factors and the flight attendants will work, obviously they'll talk to the individual about putting on the mask, but if for whatever reason they won't, that's certainly one line of defense.
Thank you.
Let me just add this to the conversation. We've added over 200 passengers to a no-fly list for not complying with our mask policy to date.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. A little bit different subject. Sharif asks us, do you think the industry will port more leisure travelers, as you have just said, actually, since business travelers are not likely to fly in some numbers the way they did in 2019 and before? If so, what things do you think the industry will do to port these leisure travelers?
It's a great question. It's nice to have something completely in my wheelhouse in sales and marketing. I think that there's several things. One, you can already see it in terms of where we're flying on a network. We almost always did hub flying, and now we're doing more what we call point-to-point flying, meaning that a lot more people can travel to Florida, for example. Even in our international destinations, I give you a little industry acronym you can impress your friends at cocktail parties with. Say, United's adding a lot of destinations to serve VFR traffic. That's visiting friends and relatives. So, for example, Lagos, Dulles, Washington happens to be one of the largest Nigerian populations, and that's really to support not business travel, but leisure travel. So on the network side, and obviously the thing that's closest to most people when they're traveling on leisure, including myself, is a good value. So we're really looking at value in terms of price and product to make sure that you are intrigued by what we have to offer. So great question. Send us your destination you want us to travel. We're also very open.
And you actually answered a question we had. Bede asked us about Lagos in Nigeria, why it went from Houston to Dallas. So I think I answered the question for him as well. E. Roach asks, thanks for taking care of touch points, but we all know, in addition to masks, social distancing, and air quality, and the time in restricted place are key. How does filling the middle seat help? Some of us can't always change flights. Also, do you keep the air filtration on while the plane is boarding, sitting, taxiing, deplaning, etc.?
Well, I'll let Andy talk about the flow. I think the answer is yes, but I want to get an expert's view on that, and I can touch on the middle seat.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and we get it often, obviously in the media and to the flying public. So when there's an airplane on the ground, previously we would hook up what's called external power or external air, where a machine was pumping air into the airplane or providing power to it. Since the pandemic has started, through working with the Cleveland Clinic, is one of the processes that was identified that we can utilize the HEPA filtration system that's already on the airplanes by running what's called an APU, or an auxiliary power unit that powers the airplane when we don't have external power available to it. So when the crew is on the airplane and while the boarding process is happening or taking customers off airplanes, we're taking the initiative to run that APU unit, the auxiliary power unit, and utilizing the filtrated air through the HEPA systems on all of our aircraft.
That's great. And again, a perfect example of innovating as we move forward. With the middle seat specifically, we really are focusing on a scientific approach to health and safety on board the plane. Having the middle seat open is also a comfort level of having that open. But we're doing a lot of things to, for example, upgauge airplanes if we see the flights are getting full and there's an opportunity to add a larger plane and more seats. We're doing that very frequently. We recognize that you may not have an opportunity to change your flight when you're advised, but that notification comes pretty early, so it gives you a chance to make a choice. And also, in addition to waiving the change fees, it's also waiving standby fees. So you could, for example, you get a notification the day before or 2 days before, and then the day of, you look and your flight looks a little bit more full than you'd like. You can stand by for a different flight on that day. The bottom line, we really believe in the scientific approach that the air filtration is paramount and the most important. We do everything possible to have the middle seat available, and just keep in mind our system load factors right now, if you include our international flights, it's in the 20%. You get to some domestic, it's at 40%. So if you think about that, the odds are very likely that your flight is going to be open. And again, that's back in the planning. If you absolutely know that you will not be comfortable on a flight, then you can look and see a Friday to Sunday. Those are always traditionally fuller flights. You need to take your personal situation into account, and there will be lots of, I feel quite confident in saying there's lots of options where you can find a flight that will work for you.
And if I could just add, as someone that just recently traveled, I went to Las Vegas recently, and the evening before, I got a text notification that my flight was looking rather full, which gave me the opportunity to pick another flight. As well, the beginning to end experience with United. There are sanitation stations across the airport. When you board the airplane, they're giving away sanitation wipes. So when you get to your seat, you can wipe everything down. On my flight, which was fairly full, going and coming back, mask compliance was not an issue. Everybody is really getting respectful of everybody's personal space. So no issues, but it was a good experience from beginning to end.
Let me just add to that conversation about HEPA filters that Andy elaborated on. I saw someone asked, what is the difference between the filters we use today than the ones we used before? And I can tell you that the state-of-the-art, hospital-grade, high-efficiency filters are the same filters we've used for decades. And basically, just to give you a bit of an illustration of how they are used, hot air is compressed through our engines, then cooled through the air conditioning units, finally circulated through the cabin. The HEPA filters then circulate the air from the cabin, mixing it together with fresh air. And the neat thing about this is that air circulates through our cabins every 2 to 3 minutes, depending on the aircraft type and model. So a 737, 2-3 minutes, a 787, 6 to 8 minutes. So you're getting a fresh air very often during that flight. And the same air you're breathing in Houston is in the same air you're breathing in Chicago.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan. I'm getting extremely a lot of requests for questions, so it's really glad. We have a 3 million mile flyer. One of our members has asked.
Thank you.
Recognize it, and we have already answered his question, and it was also mask related. Questions about international travel. Colleen asks, what about Canada, and anything else on international plans and how Houston is handling international flights?
I'll let my team talk about Houston specifically, but I did have an opportunity to hear Steve Morrissey, who's our Vice President for Regulatory, speak the other day, and it was a little sobering. We operate in 55 countries, and in 53 countries, we have significant restrictions in being able to travel there. So a lot of the good news is we've got fantastic relationships and ongoing discussions on all regulatory levels to try to move there's some exciting tests being discussed and being able to potentially move that forward. So it was encouraging to hear that there's a lot of work being done to help move that situation forward. And I'll give one specific example that I know touches a lot of our Houston corporate customers, and that's Sydney. The government currently has capacity restrictions on the number of people, and it's very small. It's 30 some people per flight, and there's tremendous demand of people who want to get back home. And so, again, there's a lot of work being done to enhance that, and I'll turn it to my colleagues to add any additional commentary.
Yeah, I would just add that international travel right now is very, very challenging for us at the airport. Today out of Houston, we have about 20-ish international departures to Mexico, South America. We recently started Frankfurt and Amsterdam for passenger travel, but the documentation to travel to some of these locations is very strenuous. And if you have a need to travel international, our recommendation is to make sure by all the information we have available on the United app or United.com that you meet the travel requirements into that location. It's from COVID testing to all kinds of different requirements depending on the location. That's really what hinders our expansion into the international destinations is the borders in a lot of these places are essentially still closed to U.S. travel. And United is willing and we're able and ready to start flying as soon as we can get those restrictions lifted. But when it does, we just urge the travelers to make sure that you know what you need before you get to the airport and that you're not surprised by not having it. I saw a question pop up about Cancun, Mexico. Cancun is actually one of our really hot destinations right now, not because of temperature, but because it's one of the only beach destinations that we're going to. And so it's open. If you want to go to Cancun, we're flying there a couple times a day. Come on. We'd love to see you.
Related to the international travel, and John is asking us about food services. You, Cyndi indicated, be prepared. How do you tackle that for international 8-10 hour flight? Food service preparation, coach, and perhaps business as well.
I'll defer to my colleagues on this specific question.
Yeah,
I traveled to Cleveland and I got a nice little bag with my water and all my snacks handed to me in a gloved hand, and it was just perfect. That probably wouldn't cut it for Amsterdam. So. Yeah.
Again, our United app and United.com is probably the best place to go for information for amenities for a specific market. We have stage links and destinations that we use on what types of food service that we provide on the airplane. In most cases, flights 2 hours or under, there's not a food service. It's a prepackaged snack service. And depending on the stage length of the flight, it might be a prepackaged type meal, or depending on class of service that you're traveling, it's a little bit different. So it's tough to say because it's different depending on where you're going.
Thank you. Diane asks about what does the checked bag pickup part of the airport look like? Checked bag pickup part. I guess when I arrive at destination or I have come back, if there are any changes in the airport where I pick up my luggage.
So there isn't a lot of changes that you would see in the baggage claim environment. I think that's what the question is. Keep in mind that international travel is very, very limited right now. So transiting through our FIS facility at Houston, because of load factor and the number of carriers that are flying, there's not a lot of traffic. But I think in general, society has adapted to social distancing, the wearing of the masks, and I think Carrie said it, you automatically are seeing people accept this and they're just staying apart from one another and being respectful. We have a number of claim devices in our airport, and we try to spread out the arrivals and how we're delivering the bags to baggage claim, keeping in mind the distancing and keeping people congregated around. As everybody wants to do, you get off the airplane, that's what you want to do is rush and get your bag and go to the curb, but who's going to pick you up? But we've seen a huge difference in just the behavior of customers and staying away from one another.
Thank you. Harry is asking us about gloves. What about passengers wearing gloves? Need, request, suggestion?
So we don't supply gloves. We do require, and if you don't have a face covering or a mask, we'll provide you a face mask. Gloves are on an individual choice and what you believe is an additional source of protection. We allow it if somebody wants to wear gloves. I've seen people traveling through the airport in full body suits, it's whatever you think that you need to be protected from what's going on.
And I would add to that our flight attendants are required to wear gloves, particularly during the service portion of the flight. And not just that, but obviously they are also required to wear a face mask or covering. If I can go back to the question about international travel, one of the things that our partners at the Houston Airport System and collaboration with Customs and Border Protection are doing is they are piloting a biometric scanner at our international gates. And that's similar to what you would experience when you walk through our FIS facility, where it scans your face and it matches that face to your documentation. It'll do the same thing as you board the plane this time around. So that's being tested, and we think it will be launched across several more of our gates here at Terminal E.
Interesting.
Pat and Leon asks, are you using Clorox bleach to clean? And if so, will that damage bleach our clothes? Cleaning supplies, and if it's bleach related, will it damage customers' clothing?
No, I've personally traveled and have come in contact with the cleaning chemical that we're using, and I have not experienced that, nor heard any complaints from customers stating that. It is important to note that the cleaning of aircraft, we're cleaning every single aircraft that turns out for a departure. In Houston alone, we have over 220 departures a day and a few more arrivals. Every airplane that comes in, we're cleaning and we're spraying it with electrostatic spray before customers board the airplane. A huge undertaking for us to figure out how to do that, but part of our safety protocol that we're doing in making sure that customers are safe while they're on the airplane.
Thank you. We have a question about the lounges. When will United lounges reopen?
So we currently have one lounge open, our Terminal E lounge, which is our largest lounge. It's open pretty much the normal hours that we would have been open prior. It's all based on demand and how much traffic we see coming through the airport. And we also keep into account social distancing and our max allowable customers to go into the facilities. We haven't reached a customer number base yet to expand. We have 5 clubs at IAH. But we're ready and we're willing to open up all 5 as soon as we have the numbers that we need to meet the demand.
Thank you.
Can I just go ahead and add to the cleaning question that was asked previously? And just to clarify, our electrostatic spraying is basically a technique and technology that is used in hospital rooms to disinfect those rooms. And it basically involves spraying an electrostatically charged mist onto the heart to reach surfaces, so it wouldn't get onto your clothes, because by the time that you're sitting in your seat ready to take off, that mist has dried off.
Thank you. A question from a member: could you talk about carry-on bags and overhead bins? Have there been any changes in the way that is handled?
No, we haven't seen the demand, and carry-on baggage was a huge challenge for us pre-COVID, and the amount of customers we had and the volumes of flights that we've had. There hasn't been any change to policy or how we handle it. There are some flights that are full and that we ask customers to gate check bags, but it is a bit different in that aspect in terms of volume.
Thank you.
Pretty much guaranteed the overhead bins are much cleaner than they ever have been with the, so it's very noticeable and welcome to see the cleanliness. It's nice.
Thank you. Chip is asking, is there any data on COVID infections from air travel? Maybe it is safer than we think.
I like the way he thinks.
I like the way you think. It's interesting, if anybody had a chance to see our CEO speak this morning with this announcement, I think he was really talking about, we are working with some very well-known organizations to do exactly that, get scientific research to say, give us some indications, is this a safe way to travel? And because we really believe in our findings that it is, but we want to ensure that we have true backing on that. David, I think we talked about this a little. Is there anything else you wanted to share on that?
I would say that the fact of the matter is that these guys are what's going to help us moving forward. And there isn't necessarily any data that we have handy that shows that, 5%, 1% of folks could get sick. The thing is, wear your mask at all times. We'll do our part to protect you by cleaning and disinfecting our aircraft regularly at every turn.
Well, and I can add as well, just anecdotally, my family with lower load factors, obviously, one of the perks of United is you get standby travel. They have taken full advantage of that and have told me they felt more safer on an aircraft than they do on the ground. So that is definitely a testament to every measure United's taking and our customers from beginning to end. So that's been really good.
Thank you. What does the first class look like?
As enticing as always.
Luxurious.
What is the customer to expect different, perhaps, than experienced a year ago flying business class?
The service flow will be a little bit different, as we talked about, again, in interest of safety, but we're constantly evaluating that to ensure that you have a fantastic service.
And I would say that one of the things that our business travelers are accustomed to is boarding the aircraft first. Although you still get that priority, we are boarding our aircraft from back to front. So most of the time, folks sitting up front board last, but you deplane first.
Yeah.
And I would just add, having had the opportunity to experience it recently, it's really first class was always kind of 5-star, a lot of touch points, a lot of service, and that same feeling is still there. But if you want a certain drink or something like that, we're not going to hand it to you. We're really trying to eliminate the touch point contacts between flight attendants, working crew members, and the customer. And so we still have all of the amenities available for the most part, but it's just how we're going to give them to you. That's what feels and looks a little bit different.
Thank you. Vijay is asking us, what's the most common mistake or mistakes with regard to their health being made by passengers before boarding the aircraft? Are there any mistakes that you've seen for passengers boarding the aircraft?
No, if you haven't been in an airport recently, and if you come back soon, which we hope, that'll be the first thing that you'll notice is kind of the behavior of people. And everybody through this pandemic has been to, a grocery store or a Walmart or something like that, and you feel it when you walk in the store. It's a different feel, the way people are conducting themselves, staying apart from another, wearing a face covering. The way you stand in the checkout line is different. And that same kind of thing that we see in society is what you'll see at the airport. I don't see that customers are more risk-taking than they were. I think they're more conscientious of staying apart from one another and following the protocols that we've been talking about.
I would only add that if you didn't already allow plenty of time to get to the airport and get before your flight, I think most people are already in that practice because of additional things that have been going on. But that's one thing, you definitely need time. It's a lot, even though there's fewer people at the airport, our banks are relatively condensed. So it may be a little bit more busy than you expected potentially. So you want to allow time. And I would say I wouldn't call it a mistake necessary, but when you travel, again, you're consumed with all your thoughts about getting to the gate and thinking about this, just being conscious. I think Andy said that well. And the other thing is, and we've all been on the flights, the flight attendant comes on and say, please remain comfortably seated while we board deplane the first class, and everybody stands up and goes to the overhead to get their bag. I've seen behavioral changes, but that's what I would say. When the flight attendant says, please stay seated, please stay seated. Because that helps. The moving around is again, as I said, we keep the filtration moving, the air moving, but that's a place where you really can enhance your safety by following the flight attendant instructions.
Thank you. Question about if individual is listed on a no-fly list, say United, because they didn't follow the protocol. Will say American Airlines and other airlines know about this individual, and if he plans on flying Delta for example, or Delta will also have that receive this message that individual A has been a little bit of a troublemaker and not following the rules per United's request?
I don't know that we can talk for other carriers. We're concerned about what happens on United Airlines and for the safety of the customers that are traveling with us and our employees. And that's why from the beginning we were an industry leader in taking the stance of the mask wearing. And, we talked about what happens if you don't wear a mask, but keep in mind, we're still in the customer service industry. And it's not our goal to take people off airplanes. It's not our goal to put people on a no-fly list with United Airlines. It's our goal to make sure that people are compliant and keeping each other safe on the airplane and our crew members. And that's what's important to United.
Thank you. Some questions about China, about flying, opening flights into China. Any timelines?
No, to put it lightly. We're ready to go to China. We'd like to go to China right now. There's so many restrictions, not only for customers, but for our flight crews. And the crew restrictions were so stringent that we were not going to put our flight crews in what the Chinese government was asking for. So until there's some changes in the restrictions going into China, I don't see that you'll see us flying there until that changes.
Thank you. And again, there's a lot of specific questions about very specific airports, very specific destination. Sarah, just wondering, what if you can give 2 countries that we can fly? We heard Mexico. Is there another destination that we can fly internationally now?
South America, we have service. We just recently restarted going to Frankfurt, Germany, not 7 days a week. I think it's 2 or 3 days a week. And then Amsterdam a couple of days a week. And we continue to work with foreign governments to open borders, to lift restrictions to where that we can fly into those places. Another thing to make note about international travel that United was another industry leading thing that we've done is the repatriation flights for citizens into certain countries that where we couldn't operate revenue travel, but we've operated tons of repatriation flights to places in South America and Honduras and other places. And when the demand and while working with the federal government to do those things, we continue to look for those opportunities.
And I'll go ahead and add to the question there, or to the answer rather, but we've also started service to Tel Aviv from our Chicago hub, including also New Delhi, Johannesburg, and a couple of other international destinations. So look those up, and if that opportunity opens up for you to travel, take it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, David, that's a really good point about our network right now. And I speak in terms of Houston, but there are a number of opportunities. I know Cindy's team is really excited about some of the new opportunities. If we can't get you there out of Houston, we can still get you there by connecting through Denver or Chicago or Newark, Washington Dulles, or San Francisco. That's kind of where the demand meets. We can still make connections to get you to those destinations.
Thank you. A couple of individuals are asking about the protocols of restrooms on the plane. What are the protocols in between use? Are they attended to?
So on board the aircraft, before anybody boards the airplane, we're spraying and cleaning all touch points, all areas of the aircraft to include the lavatory. Once you're inside, there's, like there always has been, there's soap and water to wash hands, hand sanitizer throughout the cabin of the airplane. But it's really the electrostatic spraying is the biggest change pre-COVID to what we're doing today.
And again, just to remind you, that electrostatic spraying that we do is done at every turn. So when an aircraft lands and taxis in and the plane's passengers, a crew comes in, cleans it, and then we mist it with the sprayer. That again is done at every turn at every one of our hubs and every one of the airports that we operate from.
Thank you. And again, I said there are so many questions, and thank you for all your questions. As I said earlier, you have a contact of me here at the office, and any member that didn't get to the question, please feel free to call me and email me. Make sure that we forward those requests to the very capable team here. And probably one of the last questions, United Express, the same protocols?
Yes.
Yes.
Again, I'm going to thank you all. Again, I'm sure we could be talking for 2 more hours easily, but it is so important for us as the members, travelers, and I've said the summer has come and gone, but now we look at that opportunities, what we do in the fall, and what we do for 2021. So on behalf of the World Affairs Council, I'm going to say thank you, a team of United Airlines. Thank you for your support of our organization, our mission, and appreciate giving this chance for us to partner with you and learn more, and congratulate you on all the great successes and safety that you have introduced to make sure that we are flying safely and staying healthy. So on that healthy note, I'm going to say thank you to everybody for participating. Again, circle back to us with any questions, and I wish you a wonderful evening. And that
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.